Prince William and the Princess Royal, Princess Anne, at loggerheads, falling out, not speaking. What's the true story, as ever, behind this headline?
It's the news no one expected. For Princess Anne, it's a wound far deeper than anyone could have imagined. Known as the most steadfast member of the royal family, Anne has faced decades of duty, scandal, and sacrifice with unshakable composure. But this time, something inside her finally cracked. A decision made behind the closed doors of the palace has left her heart heavy, her trust shaken, as insiders whisper about a private confrontation and a rift that may never heal. Royal watchers are asking what really happened between Princess Anne and the man she once stood by without question. Stay with us. The truth is shocking and devastating. The announcement that shook the palace began like any other morning in the quiet halls of Buckingham Palace. The sun had barely kissed the golden gates when a confidential message arrived at the press office. Within minutes, the royal communications team sprang into action. But this was no ordinary update, no simple ceremonial schedule. This was news that would ripple through every corridor of the monarchy. At the centre of it all, Princess Anne. Reporters first caught wind of the story when royal correspondents received a mysterious briefing marked urgent. Phones buzzed, whispers spread, and within hours, the story had ignited every newsroom. Headlines flashed across Britain. Something serious had happened. Something that made the most private and composed member of the royal family retreat from public view. But what could shake the Princess Royal, a woman known for her iron resolve and lifelong devotion to duty, enough to say, "I cannot forgive him for this." For decades, Princess Anne has been the steady heartbeat of the monarchy, while others faltered under pressure. She pressed on through family scandals, divorces, and public controversies. She never once sought sympathy or attention. She simply worked, year after year, engagement after engagement, representing the crown with quiet dignity unmatched by any of her siblings. Yet now, the woman who once declared she did not need applause to serve her country faced a deeply personal heartbreak. Inside, sources describe the atmosphere that day as tense, somber, almost unbearable. Staff who had served the family for over 30 years admitted they had never seen Anne so distant, so withdrawn. It was not anger that filled her eyes, they said, but sorrow, a restrained and silent pain that only comes when trust has been truly broken. Was it a political dispute, a personal betrayal, or something more intimate, striking at the very heart of family loyalty? By noon, news outlets scrambled, desperate for confirmation. The palace issued a short statement, carefully worded as always, noting that it involved personal matters of a private nature. But to royal watchers, that phrase carried immense weight. It hinted at deep, emotional turmoil behind the polished facade of royal duty. Cameras later captured Anne leaving Windsor that evening, calm, composed, yet unreadable. No words were spoken, yet the message was clear. Something inside her had changed. Commentators debated what could have driven such a devoted, loyal woman to reach a point where forgiveness seemed impossible. What could the king, her own brother, have done to provoke such a response? In a world where the royal family thrives on unity and tradition, rifts like this are rare, and when they occur, they send tremors throughout the entire institution. For now, the public is left to wonder. The Queen's only daughter, the pillar of royal strength, is facing perhaps the most personal crisis of her life. And as the palace walls close in, one truth becomes undeniable. This time, duty alone may not be enough to heal the wound. The Princess of Duty, from the moment she was born, Princess Anne carried herself with a sense of purpose that set her apart from the rest of the royal household. Daughter of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, she grew up in the public eye, yet never seemed to crave attention. Even as a young girl, her posture, her composure, and her natural discipline reflected the spirit of her father and the quiet endurance of her mother. Where others might have struggled under royal expectations, Anne thrived. As she entered adulthood, her character was forged through service. By the age of 18, she began representing the crown at official engagements, proving early on she was destined for a life of relentless commitment. By her early 20s, she had already earned a reputation as one of the hardest-working members of the royal family. Year after year, she clocked more engagements than many of her siblings combined. There were no headlines about glamour or scandal, only reports of her unwavering dedication. She once remarked that serving was not about recognition, but about responsibility, and those words became her creed. The public admired her independence. Unlike many royals who embraced privilege and luxury, Anne drove herself to events, sometimes refusing personal bodyguards, and deliberately declined royal titles for her children so they could grow up grounded. She lived by a code few could understand, but everyone respected. Duty was sacred, the backbone of the monarchy, and the reason she rose every morning with quiet determination. Her role in the royal family became vital as decades passed, through periods of criticism and change. She stood firm, representing stability when others faltered. Whether at state visits, charity functions, or equestrian events, Anne approached each task with the same seriousness and precision. She treated everyone, from world leaders to stable hands, with respect, earning admiration from all who worked alongside her. Despite her no-nonsense demeanour, those close to her knew she possessed a deep compassion often unseen. She dedicated countless hours to organisations like Save the Children, becoming one of its most active patrons. Her tireless humanitarian work took her across continents, meeting the most vulnerable, always guided by experience and faith. To many, Princess Anne represented the purest form of royal service, unwavering, uncomplaining, unbreakable. Even her critics admitted that no one embodied the motto of duty before self quite like she did. Yet beneath her calm discipline, she remained human, a daughter, a sister, a mother, a woman not immune to heartbreak. Her life of duty had trained her to endure storms with grace, but this new wound would test even her legendary composure, family bonds, and unspoken tensions. For most of her life, Princess Anne has been seen as the royal family's unwavering pillar, the sibling who holds the line when others falter. Within the complex web of royal relationships, she has always maintained a quiet but commanding presence. She understands the institution better than most, and she lives by its rules. Even when those rules demanded silence, restraint, and sacrifice, the royal family remained a family. And like all families, it has moments of tension, disappointment, and emotional distance. Anne's bond with her brother, King Charles III, has long been a mix of deep affection and quiet rivalry. Born less than 2 years apart, they shared a childhood of privilege, shadowed by immense responsibility. Charles was thoughtful and introspective. Anne was spirited and pragmatic. Differences were evident early. He preferred reflection and art. She loved horses and the outdoors. Yet they shared mutual understanding. Both were shaped by duty and raised to protect the monarchy at all costs. As adults, shared duty often brought them together, but also created friction. While Charles carried the burden of kingship long before coronation, Anne carved her own path as a working royal, valuing direct service over symbolism. When Charles modernized the monarchy, Anne often regarded his decisions with quiet skepticism. She respected him as king, but knew the value of decades of earned experience. Her relationship with her children, Peter Phillips and Zara Tindall, reflects pride and balance. She deliberately declined royal titles for them, ensuring they grew up as ordinary citizens with extraordinary roots, a bold, even radical move that highlighted her belief that strong character mattered more than inherited privilege. Yet, even as she built a close-knit family, Anne could not escape palace politics. Whispers surfaced about differing visions for the monarchy's future. Royal aides described subtle power shifts and private disagreements over public appearances, titles, and charitable direction. While Charles sought modernization and valued continuity, Anne believed duty was not something to be rebranded, but something to uphold with consistency and integrity. Insiders recall she often acted as the voice of reason in meetings, reminding everyone that tradition anchors the crown to its people. but tension quietly simmered beneath the surface. Certain royal appointments and family decisions began to unfold without Anne's full involvement, and the stage was set for a storm that no one could ignore. Those close to her noticed moments of quiet withdrawal, a sign not of defiance, but of deep disappointment. It was said she felt sidelined, her opinions respected in public, but quietly ignored in private. For a woman who had devoted her life to service, such exclusion cut deeper than words could convey. Despite the undercurrents, Princess Anne maintained her composed public face. She continued to smile for photographers, attend engagements, and speak with measured grace. Yet observers began to notice subtle changes: fewer shared appearances with her brother, more solo events, and a chill creeping into her interactions with senior royals. Behind closed doors, those closest to the family spoke of a growing emotional distance between the siblings who had once stood side by side through every royal trial. This was not a single argument or a public clash. It was the slow erosion of trust, the quiet accumulation of small wounds that eventually became impossible to ignore. Princess Anne, the unshakable servant of the crown, found herself caught between love for her brother and loyalty to her principles. And as the palace prepared for a decision that would test those bonds beyond repair, she stood at a crossroads where family affection and royal duty no longer walked hand in hand. The breaking point. The news arrived quietly, but its impact thundered through Buckingham Palace. It spread through hushed corridors long before reaching the public. This was a decision made by King Charles himself, one that would reshape long-standing family roles and alter the course of royal responsibilities. When Princess Anne received the news, witnesses described a rare stillness. She listened, she nodded, but behind that composed exterior, something broke. For decades, Anne had given everything to the monarchy. She had served without complaint, without scandal, and without expectation of recognition. To her, service was sacred. It was her inheritance, her personal vow. Yet now, that very sense of duty had been undermined. A decision regarding the redistribution of royal duties and influence among family members had been made without her knowledge or consultation. Responsibilities she had carried faithfully for over 40 years were to be reassigned, partly in an effort to streamline the monarchy. It was not the loss of position that wounded her, but the manner in which it was done. Anne had always believed that respect within the royal family was earned through steadfast loyalty. To learn of such a change from advisors rather than from her brother directly was, in her eyes, a quiet betrayal. She had stood beside Charles through criticism, controversy, and the burdens of kingship, defending his decisions even when others wavered. But this silence, this exclusion, cut deeper than any words could express. Witnesses recall that after the meeting, she returned to her private residence at Gatcombe Park and cancelled her evening engagements. The usually punctual and disciplined Princess Royal, known for her unbreakable routine, had withdrawn from sight completely. Friends described her mood as reflective, yet pained. She was not one to show emotion openly, but it was clear something inside her had shifted. The media soon noticed her absence from a scheduled royal event, and speculation erupted across news outlets. Commentators highlighted her uncharacteristic silence, her quiet retreat quickly becoming headline news. Reports suggested tension between the king and his sister over the monarchy's future direction. Those close to the palace revealed that Anne felt not only disappointed, but deeply disrespected. Her loyalty, once unquestionable, was taken for granted. She had served the crown longer than anyone alive, through transitions, crises, and public scrutiny, only to find herself excluded from decisions that directly affected her role. To her, this was not simply about duty, it was about trust. As whispers circulated, Anne remained composed in public. When she finally appeared days later at a charity event, her face was calm, her steps steady. Yet cameras caught a weight in her eyes, the kind that even the most practiced smile cannot hide. It was the look of a woman tested in silence and wounded by those closest to her. For the first time in decades, Princess Anne allowed her guard to slip in private conversation, uttering words that would soon echo across the press. "I cannot forgive him for this." Not spoken with anger, but with sorrow, a declaration born of disappointment rather than rebellion. In that moment, the unshakable pillar of royal strength faced something she had never known before: betrayal from within her own family. The woman who had endured the pressures of monarchy with discipline and grace now carried an invisible scar, one not born of public scandal, but private heartbreak. And while the crown would continue to shine in the eyes of the world, within its walls, a fracture had quietly begun to form. Through every storm the monarchy endured, Princess Anne had remained its anchor. When her brother faced criticism as Prince of Wales, it was Anne who stood silently behind him, offering stability. When the family's reputation trembled, she never sought attention, never contradicted him publicly, never allowed disagreements to spill into the press. Her loyalty was not loud, it was steadfast, the kind that holds a kingdom together when pride and politics threaten to tear it apart. Anne's relationship with Charles has always been complex, yet affectionate. Though their temperaments differ, their shared understanding of royal duty bound them tightly. She admired his intellect, his vision for a modern monarchy, and his quiet devotion to their late mother's legacy. In turn, Charles respected her discipline and her unwavering service record. They had disagreements, of course, but beneath every private conversation was the deep bond of siblings who had grown up under public scrutiny. When Queen Elizabeth II passed away, that bond seemed stronger than ever. The nation watched as Anne walked behind her mother's coffin during the funeral procession, her face a picture of solemn grace. Her dedication earned the respect of millions. She accompanied the Queen's body from Balmoral to London, a symbolic gesture of love and loyalty that moved the world, even prompting the King to publicly thank his sister for her extraordinary service. Yet behind the public unity, small cracks began to appear. Decisions surrounding royal restructuring and the redistribution of roles created tension. Anne's advice, once deeply valued, was sought less and less. Meetings were held without her presence. Her voice carried less weight in the new hierarchy. For someone whose loyalty had never wavered, this slow marginalization was profoundly painful. Still, she remained true to her principles, continuing to serve across the United Kingdom and abroad. She refused to let private disappointment overshadow public responsibility. Her devotion to her brother remained visible in every gesture, every appearance, every moment of composure. Yet within her heart, loyalty began to feel one-sided. Anne had stood by Charles through decades of scrutiny. His turbulent marriage to Diana, the speculation around Camilla, the slow rebuilding of his public image. She had defended his choices when criticized, endured moments of public backlash silently, and now to feel excluded from decisions affecting her life's work was not just discourteous, it was heartbreaking. Those close to Anne say she struggled to reconcile private emotions with duty. Forgiveness did not come easily. Not from pride, but because betrayal had arrived in the one place she felt safest, her own family. For a woman whose strength was rooted in trust, that wound would not heal overnight. Even as she continued her public duties, her silence spoke volumes. Her smile remained, but the warmth had faded. The bond that had endured half a century was now tested beyond measure. And while the world still saw a sister walking faithfully beside her brother within the quiet chambers of her heart, a question lingered, one only time could answer: whether the loyalty that once defined her would survive the pain now shadowing it behind the palace walls. Life within Buckingham Palace has always balanced between ritual and restraint. Its marble corridors and gold-trimmed rooms represent grace and grandeur. But behind those doors lies a quieter world of whispered conversations, veiled emotions, and decisions carrying the weight of centuries. For Princess Anne, that world had always been familiar, structured, disciplined, and predictable. Yet now, after the recent events that left her shaken, even those polished hallways seemed colder, as though the heart of the monarchy itself had dimmed. Silence can speak louder than words. Every look, every pause, every closed-door meeting carries meaning. Staff who have served for decades are experts at reading moods without a single sentence. After the king's controversial decision, the silence became almost tangible. Courtiers noticed a new distance between the siblings. Formality replaced the natural warmth that had once defined their interactions. Brief exchanges were polite, but they lacked the ease of familiarity that once came so naturally. Anne's private office at Buckingham Palace remained a sanctuary of efficiency and order. Her desk was always stacked with briefing folders, handwritten notes, and correspondence from charities that depended on her patronage. Yet those closest to her noticed a subtle change. She was focused, but her eyes lingered longer on the portraits of her parents hanging above her desk. Their example had always been her compass. Duty first, emotion second. Now, for the first time, that balance seemed to falter amid the shifting hierarchy of the palace. Loyalty is both a shield and a chain. Senior aides navigated unspoken rules about what could be discussed and what had to remain hidden. The tension between the king and his sister was treated with extreme delicacy. Public unity was paramount, no matter what private disagreements simmered beneath the surface. Every smile, every handshake had to appear genuine. Every photograph became a symbol of harmony. Yet beneath the glittering chandeliers, reality told a different story. A quiet fracture no royal protocol could mend. At dinners, she remained composed, answering politely, contributing when required, but avoiding deeper conversation. Those who knew her well sensed her withdrawal. She was never one for emotional displays, yet her restraint now carried a weighty undercurrent of melancholy. It was as though she had built invisible walls, not to keep others out, but to protect her own dignity. Meanwhile, the king pressed on with his reforms. His vision of a streamlined monarchy was practical and modern, but the emotional toll on his sister could never be measured in headlines or royal schedules. Their conversations grew brief, transactional, and strictly professional. Gone were the shared laughs that once lightened the burden of duty. Inside those palace walls, everyone understood the delicate balance at stake. One public misstep could undo decades of reputation, so silence became survival. Letters were written, events planned, appearances coordinated, but underneath it all, the atmosphere had shifted. The palace had always been a fortress of tradition. Now it felt like a sanctuary of secrets for Princess Anne. Loyalty had evolved into endurance. To protect the monarchy, she would continue to serve with the same quiet precision. Yet beneath her calm exterior, the wound of betrayal remained raw and unspoken. Within those echoing halls, she carried both her crown of duty and the ache of a heart quietly broken in the name of royal order. Public image versus private heartbreak. The world saw only photographs. Princess Anne standing tall beside her brother at ceremonial events, posture perfect, expression composed, every movement timed to precision. To the casual observer, nothing had changed. The royal family appeared united, faces calm, gestures rehearsed in the choreography of duty. But for those who looked closely, the truth lingered in the smallest details. The distance between them at public gatherings, the missing shared glances, the silence that replaced once familiar conversation. The British press began to notice first. Royal correspondents who had covered the family for decades whispered about Anne's unusual quietness, her absences from certain events, her early departures. Columnists speculated cautiously, hinting that the once iron bond between the king and his sister had grown fragile. Palace insiders refused to comment, insisting the relationship remained warm and supportive. Yet their polished words only fueled public curiosity. Social media, ever vigilant of royal dynamics, became a stage for speculation. Images of Anne beside her brother were dissected by viewers worldwide. Was her smile genuine? Why was she positioned further away than usual? During the last royal engagements, posts and headlines filled with theories, from simple sibling disagreements to deeper family divisions. Though the palace maintained silence, the narrative outside was already building. Heartbreak hidden behind royal protocol. For Princess Anne, every appearance became an act of composure. She had been raised to believe that emotion in public weakened the institution, and she lived by that rule. Without fail, she continued her duties with precision, travelling across the country for military ceremonies, agricultural fairs, and charity meetings. Her work never slowed. Those who knew her longest noticed a heaviness in her demeanour. The sparkle that once accompanied her dry wit and sharp humour seemed faded. At Gatcombe Park, she found refuge in the rhythm of country life, surrounded by horses, dogs, and the quiet of open fields. She could exhale. Friends visiting her estate described her as reflective, not bitter. She rarely spoke about the situation, but her silence carried meaning for her family. Disagreements were private, but the emotional weight was impossible to hide completely. Meanwhile, the king pressed on with his vision for a modern monarchy. His decisions were defended as practical, even necessary for the crown's survival in a changing world. Yet those decisions came at a personal cost. The sister who had once been his most loyal ally now stood beside him out of duty, not closeness. The bond that once represented unity and shared history had become one of polite distance. Newspapers began publishing op-eds praising Anne's professionalism and strength. She was described as the true backbone of the royal family, a woman of integrity, embodying the essence of service. Ironically, those words, meant to honour her, also revealed her isolation. Behind respect and admiration lay a quiet truth. The Princess Royal was standing alone, holding her dignity while nursing a pain few could understand. In the polished world of monarchy, appearances are everything. Yet no amount of grace could fully disguise the ache in her eyes. The public saw resilience. Behind closed doors, there was heartbreak. The sister who had given her life to service was now learning that loyalty could come with a heavy human cost. The woman behind the title, beneath the crown and centuries of tradition, stood as a figure whose strength had never depended on ceremony. Princess Anne, though born into privilege, has always lived by quiet discipline. Her power comes not from speeches or spectacle, but from the steady rhythm of service that has defined her life for over 50 years. When the cameras turn away and palace lights dim, she becomes what she has always been at her core. A woman shaped by duty, principle, and remarkable inner resolve. Those who know her best speak of her unpretentious nature. She rises early, tends to her horses, manages her household with precision, and attends to state matters with unwavering focus. She has never demanded comfort, never indulged in excess. Her sense of purpose is rooted in simplicity and hard work. That discipline, passed down from her father, has carried her through heartbreak and disappointment alike. Even now, as she navigates the emotional rift with her brother, she remains composed. The pain has not diminished. It has refined her. In quiet reflection, she often returns to her mother's lessons about endurance and grace. Those teachings remain her anchor, reminding her that forgiveness, though difficult, is part of leadership. Her children, Zara and Peter, continue to be her pride and solace. They admire her resilience, her ability to rise above emotion and maintain her dignity for them. She is more than a royal figure. She is a mother who has shown what true strength looks like, steady, compassionate, resolute in the twilight of public life. Princess Anne stands as one of the last embodiments of an older, quieter form of royalty. Behind the title, she is a woman who has given her heart to service and her soul to honour. Her story is not one of weakness, but unyielding grace, proof that even in heartbreak, duty can shine brighter than pain. As the royal family navigates a new era under King Charles, the shadow of personal wounds lingers behind palace doors. Princess Anne remains steadfast, continuing the duties that have defined her life. She attends events, meets with charities, and upholds every expectation with the same discipline that has marked her path. Yet those who observe closely can see it. The quiet distance, the calm that now feels like armor rather than serenity. The monarchy itself is evolving. The king's vision of a streamlined royal structure presses forward, balancing modern expectations with ancient traditions. Public appearances are more deliberate, the image of unity carefully preserved. But even in that picture, an unspoken truth remains. The heart of the monarchy beats not only through ceremony, but through the fragile humanity of those who wear the crown. For Princess Anne, the future is not about position or power, it is about legacy. Her devotion has always been to service itself. Though hurt may linger between her and her brother, she continues to honour the institution they both serve. Her silence has become a statement of strength, a quiet reminder that dignity endures even when trust falters. Anne often spends long evenings reflecting in the gardens, her mind tracing decades of service and personal sacrifice. She revisits memories of triumphs and quiet victories, letting the stillness remind her of her core values. Even in isolation, she finds comfort in the rhythm of horses' hooves, the rustle of leaves, and the whispers of history embedded in palace walls. Those who visit her speak of a presence that is both commanding and gentle, an energy that reassures yet carries unspoken sorrow. Her private life has become the space where reflection and healing coexist. As time moves forward, their bond may yet heal. The royal family has survived wars, scandals, and centuries of change. Perhaps forgiveness, when it comes, will arrive not through words, but through shared duty. For now, Anne stands apart, yet remains unbroken in the story of the modern monarchy. She is the steady light that does not fade. Her heart has been tested, her loyalty tried, but her purpose remains. As the crown looks to the future, it does so standing on the unshakable foundation of one woman's grace, courage, and devotion far beyond herself. Behind the grandeur and history lies a story not of titles, but of hearts. Princess Anne's journey reminds us that even those born into duty are not immune to pain, disappointment, or quiet betrayal. Yet through it all, she remains what she has always been, the embodiment of strength, grace, and endurance. Her silence is her statement, her service, her legacy. While the public may never know every word spoken or tear shed, one truth endures. She continues to carry herself with the same dignity that has defined her from the start. As the monarchy's future unfolds, her steadfast spirit remains a guiding light, proof that even when loyalty is tested and love is wounded, duty and honor still prevail. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Click the next video on your screen to continue following the story of the royal family.